Hi everyone! So, we've ranked every driver of the 2010s, so now it's time to move back a little bit further in time and rank every driver of the 2000s. This is a decade I remember very fondly as it's when I first started watching Formula 1. It was the decade of screaming V10s that is best remembered for the dominance of Michael Schumacher in the first half, and the scramble for dominance among the younger drivers in the wake of his retirement in the second half. As with the 2010s video, drivers will be ranked according to their performance in this decade only rather than their careers as a whole. So as far as this list is concerned, Fernando Alonso has never driven for Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton has only one championship to his name. With that out of the way, here's a comprehensive ranking of all 71 Formula 1 drivers to have raced between 2000 and 2009. So, the worst Formula 1 driver of the 2000s is Yuji Ide. Yuji Ide is not necessarily a bad driver in general, he only retired from racing a few years ago in his mid-40s, but he was completely inadequately prepared for Formula 1. Virtually nobody had heard of him when he was chosen by Aguri Suzuki to partner Takuma Sato with the new Super Aguri team in 2006, who was determined to field an all-Japanese team. Ide had a lot of single-seater experience in Japan, but got hardly any testing in before the season began. He qualified well outside the hypothetical 107% time in qualifying in Bahrain, and then ran over his pit mechanics in the race before the car broke down. He actually made an overtake on Thiago Monteiro early on in Sepang, but then the car broke down once again. He managed to finish in Australia after blocking several drivers in qualifying, but was plumb last and 3 laps down despite there being 3 safety cars. But the coup de grace came at Imola, where he dive-bombed Christian Albers on lap 1 and sent him into a barrel roll. After this he had his FIA Super Licence revoked, and that was the end of his short but memorable F1 career. In 4 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 13th at the 2006 Australian Grand Prix. In 70th is Luca Badoer. Badoer had had largely unremarkable stints in F1 in the 90s with Scuderia Italia, Minardi and Forti before he was made Ferrari's test driver at the turn of the century. He clocked in thousands of miles at Fiorano and was a vital cog in the unstoppable Ferrari machine. Felipe Massa suffered a near-fatal accident at Hungary in 2009, so as a reward for his dedication and service, Badoer was given his seat, which was one of the longest gaps between races in Formula 1 history. This was the first year of the new regulations, and Badoer had never driven the car before, so at Valencia, a circuit which he had also never driven at before, he was miles off the pace and also sped in the pit lane several times, qualifying last and finishing last. He repeated this in Belgium despite setting the fastest Sector 1 time of the race. Ferrari were in a tight battle with McLaren, so the decision was made to demote him back to his testing role, which he kept until the end of 2010. In 2 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 14th at the 2009 Belgian Grand Prix. In 69th is Alex Yoong. Yoong joined perennial backmarkers Minardi at the end of 2001 with generous sponsorship from the Malaysian government. He had no answer for teammate Fernando Alonso but stayed for 2002, now partnered by Mark Webber. He survived a chaotic first race to finish 7th, but as the season went on he never qualified any higher than last, often by a very large margin, and 3 times failed to qualify at all in Imola, Silverstone and Hockenheim after failing to meet the 107% time. In the races he did start, he often span and also had to battle with the usual Minardi reliability issues. He was then dropped for 2 races to go on an intensive training course. When he returned he'd barely improved and was dropped for 2003. In 14 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 7th at the 2002 Australian Grand Prix. In 68th is Tomasz Enger. The first and only Czech driver in Formula 1, Enger was brought into the faltering Prost team as a fade driver at the end of 2001 to replace an injured Luciano Berti. He beat both Minardis in qualifying at Monza but was over 2 seconds slower than teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen and then finished 12th. He qualified 2nd from last in Indianapolis and then finished last after stalling at the start. He then qualified over a second behind Frentzen in Suzuka and finished last once again. After this he carved out a long sports car career punctuated by drug offences. In 3 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 12th at the 2001 Italian Grand Prix. In 67th is none other than Markus Winkelhock. Winkelhock was a difficult one to rank because he had by far the shortest F1 career on this list, but in 14 laps experienced more than most drivers in entire seasons. He was one of Spiker's test drivers in 2007 and was promoted to a race seat to replace Christian Albers at the European Grand Prix. He unsurprisingly qualified last, over a second behind teammate Adrian Sutil, but on race day made the key decision to pit for wet tyres at the end of the formation lap when the rain started to come down. Most drivers then pitted as well as the end of lap 1, and he took the lead from Kimi Raikkonen on lap 2, who had missed the pit lane entry. While every other driver was barely keeping themselves on the track in the now torrential rain, Finkelhock stormed ahead, having never driven in the wet, in the slowest car on the grid to a lead of over 30 seconds before the race got red flagged. Finkelhock therefore became the first ever driver to start the same race from first and last. The sun had come out, so when the race resumed he dropped like a stone as he was still on wet tyres and a few laps later lost the hydraulics, and that was the story of Marcus Finkelhock. In 66th is Frank Montagny. Montagny was a successful sports car driver who was made Super Aguri's test driver in 2006 and then replaced Yuji Ide as second driver after his FIA Super licence was revoked. He was far more competent than Ide was, but still provided little competition to Takuma Sato, but did outqualify him in Magny Cours before he was then replaced himself with Sakon Yamamoto. In 7 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 16th at the 2006 Monaco and French Grand Prix. In 65th is Montagny's successor Sakon Yamamoto. An archetypal pay driver, Yamamoto was Takuma Sato's third teammate at Super Aguri in 2006 and once again provided little competition for him, usually qualifying last and often spinning in races. Both drivers enjoyed a very strong final race, though Yamamoto still finished last, and then midway through 2007 he joined Spiker, replacing Marcus Finkelhock. He once again qualified and finished last at every race and again frequently span and got involved in accidents. He became Renault's test driver in 2008 and had another fruitless stint with HRT in 2010. In 14 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 12th at the 2007 Japanese Grand Prix. In 64th is Gaston Mazzacane. Mazzacane was Minardi's test driver in 1999 and was then promoted to a race seat for 2000. He rarely outqualified teammate Marc Genet, but mostly kept out of trouble and clocked in some of the highest mileage of any driver that year. His main highlight was getting up to third in the rain at Indianapolis before pitting and then running over his mechanics. He moved to Prost in 2001 but never came anywhere near teammate Jean Alesi in qualifying, never getting off the final 2 rows, finished only 1 race and was fired by Alain Prost 4 races in. In 21 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 8th the 2000 European Grand Prix. In 63rd is Gian Maria Bruni. Bruni drove for Minardi in 2004 in a largely uneventful year where he had no one to race with other than teammate Scholt Baumgartner, and it was a miracle if he qualified off the final row of the grid. In 18 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 14th at the 2004 Malaysian, European and Hungarian Grand Prix. In 62nd is Giorgio Pantano. Pantano joined Jordan in 2004 after an abortive attempt to race with Jaguar. Minimal testing left him miles behind teammate Nick Heidfeld, and at Canada he was replaced with Timo Glock, who beat Heidfeld and finished in the points. He returned to his seat for the next race but then voluntarily left the sport with 3 races remaining. After this he went into the GP2 series and won it on his 4th attempt. In 14 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 13th at the 2004 Malaysian and European Grand Prix. In 61st is Patrick Friesacher. Friesacher signed with Minardi for 2005, originally for the whole season, but after consistently qualifying last and either finishing last or not finishing at all, his sponsors pulled the plug early. In 11 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 3 points and a best finish of 6th at the farcical United States Grand Prix. The first driver to break the top 60 is Tasso Marquez. Marquez had done brief spells with Minardi in the mid-90s before partnering up with them again in 2001 and being joined by a rookie Fernando Alonso. He almost never outqualified or outraced Alonso, and as he was not a pay driver knew his seat could go at any time, which it did to Alex Young with 3 races remaining. In 14 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points and a best finish of 9th at the 2001 Brazilian and Canadian Grand Prix. In 59th is Nicolas Kayser. Kayser had a short stint with Minardi at the end of 2003, replacing Justin Wilson. He failed to outqualify teammate Jos Verstappen at all, but did finish every race he started, even if in last every time. In 5 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 11th at the 2003 United States Grand Prix. In 58th is Zsolt Baumgartner. The first and so far only Hungarian F1 driver, Baumgartner did 2 races at Jordan in 2003, filling in for an injured Ralf Furman, and then tried to get a seat with them for 2004 but signed with Minardi instead, starting an online fan club in order to help fund his campaign. Like with teammate Gian-Maria Bruni, there was little he could do in what was a very uncompetitive car, but he did score the team's solitary point of the year at Indianapolis. In 20 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 1 point, and a best finish of 8th at the 2004 United States Grand Prix. In 57th is Romain Grosjean. Grosjean obviously had a long run in Formula 1 in the 2010s, but many people may have forgotten his brief stint with Renault in 2009. He was made Renault's test driver in 2008 after a very impressive junior career. He then replaced Nelson Piquet Jr. after he was fired in mid-2009. Nobody expected him to anyway, but he couldn't match teammate Fernando Alonso, but was generally closer than would be expected of a rookie. He had several accidents and often struggled with the brakes, both of which were common occurrences in his later career as well. He finished last only once, but was still clearly not ready for Formula 1. In 7 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 13th at the 2009 Brazilian Grand Prix. In 56th is Robert Doornbos. After 2 years of testing with Jordan, Doornbos joined Minardi in the second half of 2005 and made little impact. In 2006, he signed with Red Bull as their test driver and replaced Christian Klien for the final 3 races, where he again drove unremarkably. After retiring from racing, he dabbled in crossing a rather different kind of finish line by founding a company that manufactures interactive sex toys.
Vibrating robot vagina!
In 11 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 12th at the 2006 Chinese and Brazilian Grand Prix. In 55th is Enrique Bernoldi. In his 2 years of Arrows in 2001 and 2002, Bernoldi showed himself to be seemingly fearless as he defended against David Coulthard for 35 laps at Monaco in 2001 and passed Michael Schumacher when Schumacher was struggling to climb through the field at Sepang in 2002. He however finished very few races he started and was famously asked to deliberately fail to qualify at Magny-Cours in 2002 before the team folded. In 29 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 8th at the 2001 German Grand Prix. In 54th is the ironically named Scott Speed. One of the earliest Red Bull Junior drivers, Speed had a reasonable first year at Toro Rosso and was sometimes too fast for his own good and wasn't afraid to throw American sass at other drivers. He had appeared to have scored the team's first points in Australia, only to be given a 25-second time penalty for overtaking under yellow flags. He stayed with Toro Rosso for 2007, but this campaign was markedly worse as he made up for teammate Tonio Liuzzi's poor reliability with plenty of crashes. After joining half a dozen other cars in the gravel trap at Turn 1 at the Nürburgring, he was punched in the face by team boss Franz Tost. He called it quits and was replaced by a young German named Sebastian Vettel. In 28 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 9th at the 2006 Australian Grand Prix and 2007 Monaco Grand Prix. In 53rd is Jaime Alguersuari. Alguersuari became the youngest driver in Formula 1 history when he replaced Sebastian Bourdais at Toro Rosso in mid-2009 at the age of 19, also becoming the first F1 driver born in the 90s. It was an unexpected move and he spent most of the year adjusting to the speed and getting his fitness up to the required levels. In 8 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 14th at the 2009 Brazilian Grand Prix. In 52nd is Pedro Diniz. Diniz came from a wealthy Brazilian family and did modest performances in the second half of the 90s with 40, Ligier, Arrows and Sauber, on the rare occasions he could finish a race. He went into the new century in his second year with Sauber. It ended up being a disappointing year in which he crashed a lot and, unlike teammate Mika Salo, failed to score any points. After falling out with Peter Sauber, he left the team, bought a stake in Prost, fell out with Alain Prost as well, and then returned to Brazil to work on his farm. In 16 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 7th at the 2000 European Grand Prix. In 51st is Ralph Furman. Furman had a quiet season with Jordan in 2003 in which he rarely got anywhere near teammate Giancarlo Fisichella's pace and often crashed, including a heavy trip to the barriers at the Hungaroring that forced him to sit out 2 races. In 14 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 1 point, and a best finish of 8th at the 2003 Spanish Grand Prix. The first driver to break the top 50 is Nelson Piquet Jr. There have been a fair few sons to have followed in their father's footsteps and entered Formula 1 themselves, but Piquet stood out as his father was a 3-time champion with a fiery temper to boot. He debuted with Renault in 2008 alongside Fernando Alonso, which only increased expectations further. It took 8 races before he scored any points on account of his poor pace and incessant crashing. A lucky safety car in Germany meant he almost won after starting 17th. He started getting momentum after this, but crashed out at Spa and completely unexpectedly in Singapore. Further points came in Japan and China, and he'd secured a drive for 2009. He however fell back into bad habits and was fired in the summer break. He then decided to drag Flavio Briatore and Pat Simmons down with him by famously dunking on the team and declaring that he had been asked to deliberately crash at Singapore the previous year in order to bring out the safety car and give track position and eventually the win to Alonso. So if nothing else, he's the undisputed GOAT of F1 wingmen. In 28 races, he got no wins, 1 podium, no poles, no fastest laps, 19 points, and a best finish of 2nd at the 2008 German Grand Prix. In 49th is Alan McNish. McNish was a highly rated sports car driver when he finally got his big break with the new Toyota team in 2002, several years after many felt he could have entered the sport. Despite not qualifying particularly well, he often finished reasonably high in the races, but points always eluded him. He missed the season-ending Japanese Grand Prix after crashing at 1:30R in qualifying and then returned to sports cars. In 16 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 7th at the 2002 Malaysian Grand Prix. In 48th is the late Justin Wilson. Wilson nearly replaced Alex Young at Minardi in 2002 but was too tall to fit in the car. He signed a 3-year deal with them for 2003 but only just secured the funds to do so after allowing investors to buy shares in him at the London Stock Exchange. He generally matched his far more experienced teammate Jos Verstappen, as near the end of the season was chosen by Jaguar to replace Antonio Pizzonia. He struggled to adjust to the car but still scored a point at Indianapolis. After being booted in favour of pay driver Christian Klein in 2004, he moved to the States and carved out a long career in Champ Car and IndyCar, but was sadly killed aged 37 at the ABC Supply 500 on August 24, 2015 after being struck on the head by flying debris from another car. In 16 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 1 point, and a best finish of 8th at the 2003 United States Grand Prix. In 47th is Luciano Berti. Berti became the new Jaguar team's test driver in 2000 and was unexpectedly called up to replace the ill Eddie Irvine at Austria. He was given a race seat in 2001 but fell out with the team only 4 races in, but managed to move over to Prost to replace the recently sacked Gaston Mazzacane. He provided fair competition for teammate Jean Alesi but ended his career with a very heavy crash at Blanchimont at Spa. In 14 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 8th at the 2001 Australian and Canadian Grand Prix. In 46th is Antonio Pizzonia. Pizzonia was made Williams' test driver in 2002 and was promoted to a race seat with Jaguar for 2003. However, he failed to see out the season after failing to score any points. He returned to his testing role at Williams, and then midway through 2004 filled in for Marc Genet, who had in turn been filling in for Ralf Schumacher. While a fair bit off teammate Juan Pablo Montoya in qualifying, he was closer in the races. He returned to testing in 2005 and was once again brought in to race at the end of the season to replace Nick Heidfeld. After jumping from 16th to 7th in Monza, he then crashed out of 3 of the remaining 4 races, unceremoniously ending a rather disjointed F1 career. In 20 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 8 points, and a best finish of 7th at the 2004 German, Hungarian and Italian Grand Prix and 2005 Italian Grand Prix. In 45th is Marc Genet. Genet raced with Minardi in 1999 as a rookie and stayed with them for 2000. He unsurprisingly scored no points but easily dispatched of teammate Gaston Mazzacane. He became Williams' test driver in 2001 and was called up to replace the injured Ralf Schumacher at Monza in 2003, where he started 5th and finished 5th. He filled in for him once again at the French and British Grand Prix in 2004, but finished outside the points and was then replaced with Antonio Pizzonia. He then spent the rest of the decade testing for Ferrari. In 20 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 4 points, and a best finish of 5th at the 2003 Italian Grand Prix. In 44th is Christian Albers. Albers made the transition from DTM to Formula 1 by becoming Minardi's test driver in 2004. He moved up to a race seat in 2005 and comfortably beat teammates Patrick Friesacker and Robert Dornbos. He moved over to the new Midland F1 team in 2006 and generally outperformed new teammate Sergio Montero as well, when the car wasn't being flipped upside down. Midland became Spiker in 2007, but new teammate Adrian Sutil ran rings around him and he lost his seat mid-season after his sponsors stopped paying. In 46 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 4 points, and a best finish of 5th at the farcical 2005 United States Grand Prix. In 43rd is Sebastian Bourdais. Bourdais had a lot of street cred when he signed for Toro Rosso in 2008 with 4 consecutive Champ Car titles under his belt. It was believed he would provide a good match for Sebastian Vettel, but this proved not to be the case. He lucked into points in the first race, and over the next few both he and Vettel got involved in a lot of accidents. The introduction of a new car at Monaco swung things in Vettel's favour, who started scoring regular points. In Spa, Bourdais finally started driving at the car's capabilities and was on course for 3rd until rain on the last lap dropped into 7th, behind Vettel. He qualified 4th in Monza, but then stalled on the grid and started the race a lap down, finishing 18th while Vettel won from pole. He'd seemingly scored points with 6th in Japan, but was penalised for a collision with Felipe Massa that many believe was not his fault and dropped to 10th. He stayed with Toro Rosso in 2009, but gradually got worse and worse as the season went on and was fired halfway through and replaced with Jaime Alguersuari, then returning to the United States to race far more successfully in IndyCar and sports cars. In 27 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 6 points, and a best finish of 7th for the 2008 Australian and Belgian Grand Prix. In 42nd is Narain Karthikeyan. Karthikeyan immediately stood out on the Formula 1 grid when he signed for Jordan in 2005 as Formula 1's first Indian driver. He initially started fairly strongly in what was a fairly weak car, but after the infamous United States Grand Prix in which teammate Thiago Monteiro took the final podium spot, he started to lose momentum and ended the season with a heavy crash in China. He didn't stay with the team under their new guys as Midland in 2006 and became Williams' test driver for 2 years before spending 2 cucumber-tastic years of HRT in 2011 and 2012. In 19 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 5 points, and a best finish of 4th at the 2005 United States Grand Prix. In 41st is Kazuki Nakajima. Nakajima had been supported by Toyota his entire junior career and was made Williams' test driver in 2007 in exchange for Williams getting Toyota engines free of charge. He took over from Alex Wurz at the final round, where he ran over the pit mechanics, and then got a full-time seat in 2008, getting points here and there, but far fewer than teammate Nico Rosberg, and was also lucky to go a single race without breaking his front wing. He stayed there in 2009, but became the only driver to start every race that year and not score any points. In 36 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 9 points, and a best finish of 6th at the 2008 Australian Grand Prix. The first driver to break the top 40 is Anthony Davidson. Davidson began a long Brackley-based career in 2000 when he became BAR's test driver. He filled in for Alex Young at Minardi for 2 races in 2002, but crashed out of both of them. After continuing extensive testing with BAR, he filled in for Takuma Sato at Malaysia in 2006, but lost the engine 2 laps in. Honda bought out BAR in 2006, and in 2007 he finally got a full-time seat with their new unofficial B team Super Aguri. As they were using a modified version of Honda's 2006 car, which he had tested with extensively, Davidson had fewer balance and handling problems than Sato, but was unable to replicate Sato's flashes of brilliance, but did come very close to a podium in Canada if not for a pesky groundhog. He stayed in 2008, but they went into administration only 4 races in, and he continued his work at Brackley with Bourne GP and then Mercedes, whilst also doing sports car racing and punditry work. In 24 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 11th at the 2007 Spanish, Canadian and United States Grand Prix. In 39th is Thiago Monteiro. Montero became Minardi's test driver in 2004, in a year in which he finished second to Heikki Kovalainen in the World Series by Nissan. He then signed with Jordan for 2005. He obliterated the record for most consecutive finishes for a rookie driver by seeing the checkered flag 16 times before the drive shaft broke at Interlagos, a record since broken by Max Chilton. In this time, he claimed his unprecedented podium finish at Indianapolis, celebrating on the podium in a slightly cringe-worthy fashion in a race in which he no doubt would have finished outside the top 10 in normal circumstances. He did also get a much more deserved and meaningful point at Spa. He moved over to the new Midland F1 team in 2006, where he complemented teammate Christian Alba's engine failures with several crashes. An average season meant he was replaced with Adrian Sutil for 2007. In 37 races, he got no wins, 1 podium, no poles, no fastest laps, 7 points, and a best finish of 3rd at the 2005 United States Grand Prix. In 38th is Vitantonio Liuzzi. As with many before him, Liuzzi moved up to Formula 1 after winning International Formula 3000, also being one of Red Bull's earliest junior drivers after a stellar karting career. He was made test driver for Red Bull in 2005, with an agreement that he would share the second seat with Christian Klein, but he raced only 4 times out of 19 races. For 2006, he was given a seat at Red Bull's new sister team Toro Rosso, and like teammate Scott Speed did enjoy a good crash, but generally outdrove the car and got the team's only point that year. 2007 did not go so well. He managed a run of 9 consecutive non-finishes and then started getting shown up by new teammate Sebastian Vettel after the summer break. He appeared to have got a point at long last at a very wet Fuji Speedway after Vettel crashed behind the safety car while in 3rd place, only to get penalised and give that point to Spiker. He and Vettel then got a double points finish in China, which saved a largely disastrous year for the team. He became Force India's test driver in 2008 and then replaced Giancarlo Fisichella late in 2009 before finishing off his F1 career in an unremarkable fashion with Force India and HRT. In 44 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 5 points, and a best finish of 6th at the 2007 Chinese Grand Prix. In 37th is Ricardo Zonta. Zonta had a fantastic junior career with titles in Brazilian Formula 3, Formula 3 Sudamericana, International Formula 3000 and the FIA GT Championship, but his Formula 1 career never really took off, despite interest from several teams. He signed with the brand new BAR team in 1999 alongside 1997 champion Jacques Villeneuve, and stayed with them for 2000. He scored a few points amongst several crashes, but still couldn't match his teammate. He was replaced with Olivier Parnis for 2001 and became Jordan's test driver, having turned down a race seat with them 2 years earlier. He replaced an injured Heinz-Harald Frentzen for 1 race, and then another when he got fired, but Zonta then only lasted 1 race before being replaced himself by Jean Alesi. He left Formula 1 in 2002 and won the World Series by Nissan, and then became Toyota's test driver in 2003. He then replaced Cristiano De Matta towards the end of 2004 when he was fired. He only finished 1 race and was up to 4th in Monza before the engine blew 3 laps before the end. Jarno Trulli then replaced him with 2 races remaining, but he was allowed to race in his native Brazil. He remained test driver for 2005 and was called up to race at the last minute at Indianapolis after Ralf Schumacher's tyre-induced high-speed crash, only to then have a tyre failure of his own and not start the race along with all other Michelin-shod teams. He continued his testing role in 2006 and then did so for Renault in 2007 before leaving Formula 1 for good. In 24 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 3 points, and a best finish of 6th at the 2000 Australian, Italian and United States Grand Prix. In 36th is Johnny Herbert. Herbert was a mainstay of F1 in the 1990s, where he'd become quite popular and achieved 3 wins, the 3rd of which came with Stewart. Stewart became Jaguar in 2000, and while fairly even with teammate Eddie Irvine, Herbert couldn't score any points and then ended the year and his F1 career on a stretcher. In 17 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, no points, and a best finish of 7th at the 2000 Austrian and Japanese Grand Prix. In 35th is Sebastian Buemi. Buemi had big boots to fill when he replaced Sebastian Vettel at Toro Rosso in 2009. Despite not giving the dazzling performances of his predecessor, he did score points on his debut and still emulated Vettel in comfortably beating Sebastian Bourdais before he was sacked, and then doing the same to Jaime Alguersuari. The two stayed at Toro Rosso for another 2 years before being shockingly dropped at the end of 2011, but this paved the way for Buemi to go and dominate in both WEC and Formula E. In 17 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 6 points, and a best finish of 7th at the 2009 Australian and Brazilian Grand Prix. In 34th is Adrian Sutil. Sutil's F1 career seemingly started pretty strongly. He performed reasonably well as teammate to Lewis Hamilton in the Formula 3 Euro Series, and joined F1 at the same time as him, but at opposite ends of the grid. Sutil's teammates at Spiker provided little competition, and he occasionally flexed his muscles against Honda and Super Aguri, but at Force India in 2008 he met his match in the far more experienced Giancarlo Fisichella. He scored no points that year, but did almost get 4th at Monaco until he was yeeted off the track by Kimi Raikkonen. For 2009, the car's pace was more inconsistent, but in a good way, as he spent most of the year at the back but almost got points again in Germany, which once again Raikkonen had something to say about, but then made up for that with a near podium in Monza, once again thwarted by that pesky Raikkonen. In 52 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, 1 fastest lap, 6 points, and a best finish of 4th at the 2009 Italian Grand Prix. In 33rd is Christian Klien. Klien joined Jaguar in 2004, ostensibly as a pay driver, but drove much more competently than expected. He stayed when the team became Red Bull in 2005 and shared his seat with Tonio Liuzzi, though he still drove the main bulk of the races and finished top 10 all but twice. His second year with the team didn't go so well, with him barely able to make a dent in David Coulthard, and he was dropped with 3 races remaining in favour of Robert Dornbos. In 46 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 14 points, and a best finish of 5th at the 2005 Chinese Grand Prix. In 32nd is Olivier Panis. After 6 years with Ligier and Prost, Panis spent a year testing at McLaren and then moved to BAR in 2001. This didn't give him the results he'd hoped for, and he retired from more races than he finished. He signed for Toyota in 2003, but ended up getting showed up by his rookie teammate Cristiano De Matta and ended up retiring at the end of 2004 with 1 race remaining. In 67 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 20 points, and a best finish of 4th at the 2001 Brazilian Grand Prix. In 31st is Timo Glock. Glock's F1 career began as a test driver for Jordan in 2004. He got called up to race at Canada in place of the faltering Giorgio Pantano, and impressed by beating teammate Heidfeld and scoring the team's first points that year. After Pantano left the team, he raced for the final 3 rounds and finished 15th in each. After winning the GP2 series in 2007, he came back to Formula 1 with Toyota in 2008. He crashed out of the first 2 races and initially struggled to get points until finishing 4th at Canada, clearly a track he was strong at. A heavy crash at Hockenheim was followed by his first podium at Hungary. He mustered his way up to 4th at Interlagos on dry tyres in the rain, but was passed by Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton at the last corner of the last lap. But fortunately, nobody noticed this. 2009 began well with 4 points finishes, including a second place at the shortened Malaysian Grand Prix and a front row start in Bahrain. He struggled to maintain this form, but drove strongly to another second place in Singapore. At the next round in Suzuka, however, he crashed, again, in practice, broke his back and sat out the rest of the season. In 35 races, he got no wins, 3 podiums, no poles, 1 fastest lap, 51 points, and a best finish of 2nd at the 2008 Hungarian Grand Prix and 2009 Singapore Grand Prix. The first driver to break the top 30 is Jos Verstappen. Verstappen was one of the nomads of the 90s, never staying in one place for too long. He signed for Arrows in 2000, often punching well above his weight and wrestling the car into the points when it didn't break down. He stayed at Arrows for 2001. He had beaten the car into submission reliability-wise, even with his aggressive driving, but it had lost some of its pace, forcing him to pound along in the midfield, where he punted Juan Pablo Montoya off the track at Interlagos when being lapped. He lost the fight for his seat in 2002 with Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and then moved to Minardi for 2003. Grabbing the car by the scruff of the neck, he finished top 10 twice, but then got knocked out of Formula 1. He definitely hasn't rubbed off on Max. In 50 races, he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 6 points, and a best finish of 4th at the 2000 Italian Grand Prix. In 29th is Kamui Kobayashi. Kobayashi made his unplanned debut only 2 races before the close of the decade, filling in for an injured Timo Glock at Toyota. He made a huge statement at Interlagos by fearlessly holding off Jenson Button's charge to the championship for several laps, and then symbolically punted the outgoing Kazuki Nakajima into the barriers. He drove a bit more cautiously in Abu Dhabi but still stormed his way through the field, battling defiantly with another champion in Kimi Raikkonen, setting him up well for the 2010s. In 2 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 3 points and a best finish to 6th at the 2009 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. In 28th is Alex Wurz. Wurz was a driver who spent more time testing than racing. He drove in his 4th season for Benetton in 2000. He scored points only once while teammate Giancarlo Fisichella got regular podiums, so he was replaced with Jenson Button for 2001 and became McLaren's test driver. He stayed in this role for the next 5 years and filled in for Juan Pablo Montoya at Imola in 2005 where he finished on the podium, 8 years after his first podium in 1997. He became Williams' test driver for 2006 and was then given a full-time race seat in place of Mark Webber in 2007. He couldn't match teammate Nico Rosberg and scored points only 3 times, but did get another podium at a safety car heavy Canada. He retired with 1 race remaining and then saw out the decade with yet more testing with Honda and Brawn GP. In 34 races he got no wins, 2 podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 21 points and a best finish of 3rd at the 2005 San Marino Grand Prix and the 2007 Canadian Grand Prix. In 27th is Cristiano Da Matta. Having conquered Champ Car in 2002, Da Matta then tried his luck at Formula 1. He signed to Toyota and impressed immediately, being more than a match for his very experienced teammate Olivier Panis, and holding off the Regenmeister himself Michael Schumacher in the rain at Interlagos for several laps. He then led past the British Grand Prix after not pitting for the safety car caused by a deranged Catholic priest running across the track. He ended up scoring almost double Panis' points, but for 2004 things did not go well. He was still outperforming Panis, but became disillusioned with the car's downturn in performance and was fired mid-season for ragging on the car and the team. In 28 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 13 points and a best finish of 6th at the 2003 Spanish and German Grand Prix and 2004 Monaco Grand Prix. In 26th is Mika Salo. Salo had been a familiar face in the midfield in the 90s and had a brief spell filling in for Michael Schumacher at Ferrari in 1999. He signed for Sauber at the turn of the century. He never finished outside the top 10 but wanted to drive for a more competitive team, so he sat out 2001 and joined the new Toyota team and helped them in their preparations to enter in 2002. He scored points on the team's debut and then again in Brazil, but beyond this no further points came, and Salo was fired by the team at the end of the year after being critical of the lack of performance from the car. In 33 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 8 points and a best finish of 5th at the 2000 Monaco and German Grand Prix. In 25th is Jean Alesi. Alesi was one of the most popular drivers of the 90s and had scored numerous podiums but only 1 win. After 2 fruitless years with Sauber, he moved to Prost in 2000. This ended up being even worse as he finished only 5 races on account of poor reliability and had several big crashes. Despite his frustrations, he stayed for 2001 and the car was a considerable improvement, giving him no retirements and several top 10 finishes. He ended up swapping seats with Heinz-Harald Frentzen at Jordan mid-season, against Prost's will, but there weren't any noticeable improvements in pace, so he decided to retire rather than keep struggling in the midfield after spending years in front-running cars. In 34 races he got no wins, no podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 5 points and a best finish of 5th at the 2001 Canadian Grand Prix. In 24th is Pedro de la Rosa. Another serial tester, the highly regarded de la Rosa made his debut with Arrows in 1999 and stayed with them for 2000. Despite poor reliability, he enjoyed a good season and a cordial relationship with teammate Jos Verstappen. He became Prost's test driver in 2001, but 4 races in left them to join Arrows' main rivals Jaguar. This was more difficult than with Arrows as he couldn't compensate for poor reliability with the same strong drives as teammate Eddie Irvine. He left the team at the end of 2002 and joined McLaren as a test driver, forming a strong partnership with Alex Wurz. He filled in for the injured Juan Pablo Montoya at the 2005 Bahrain Grand Prix and set the fastest lap and a lap record which he still holds to this day. Montoya left the team mid-2006, so De La Rosa raced for them for the rest of the season. He scored regular points and got his only podium at Hungary. He was considered for a full-time race seat in 2007 but lost out to Lewis Hamilton and went back to his prolific testing role. In 58 races, he got no wins, 1 podium, no poles, 1 fastest lap, 28 points and a best finish of second at the 2006 Hungarian Grand Prix. In 23rd is Eddie Irvine. The loud-mouthed Irishman had come perilously close to giving Ferrari their first driver's title in 20 years when he had to take over the reins from an injured Michael Schumacher in 1999, but for 2000 he decided to move to the brand new Jaguar team. However, things quickly went downhill and he scored points only twice and crashed numerous times. His seat was in doubt for 2001, which was a largely worse season, save for brief flashes of promise such as his podium at Monaco, but he stayed for 2002 and inadvertently got team principal Bobby Rahal sacked after he tried to sell him off to Jordan, who was then replaced with Niki Lauda. Despite the car's abysmal reliability, this was a better season, as when he did finish he was never outside the top 10. He did however get sacked at the end of the year for being persistently critical of the lack of car development. In 49 races he got no wins, 2 podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 18 points and a best finish of third at the 2001 Monaco Grand Prix and 2002 Italian Grand Prix. In 22nd is Jacques Villeneuve. The 1997 champion's meteoric rise was followed by an equally meteoric plummet down the ranks. After a miserable title defence, he moved to the new BAR team in 1999 in the hopes he could build the team up around him in the way that Michael Schumacher had done with Ferrari, and scored no points. He stayed for 2000, which saw a marked improvement, and he scored regular points but no podiums. Points were less frequent in 2001, but he did get 2 podiums. He turned down an offer to drive for Renault in 2002 and ended up regretting this as points were rare and he didn't get on with new team principal David Richards. 2003 was even worse as he was now being outperformed by new teammate Jenson Button and was fired with 1 race remaining. He sat out 2004 but accepted an offer to race with Renault for the final 3 races after they fired Jarno Trulli in the hope that they could use the former champion's experience to overcome BAR in their battle for second in the Constructors' Championship. However, that idea quickly went to shit as he scored no points and was lapped in every race. He moved to Sauber in 2005 but made no friends here either as he couldn't get the team on board with his bizarre setup demand and scored only a handful of points. When the team became BMW Sauber in 2006, he started to enjoy himself more, but the team was still not impressed, and after 3 crashes in 4 races he was fired again, and the 1997 champion's Formula 1 career came to an end. In 98 races he got no wins, 2 podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 55 points and a best finish of third at the 2001 Spanish and German Grand Prix. In 21st is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Frentzen entered the new millennium on a high after being a title contender with Jordan for most of 1999. The new decade did not start so well as there were sporadic points among numerous retirements, and mid-2001 he was sacked and went to Prost. This only lasted 5 races before they folded, and so he went to Arrows for 2002. They then folded as well mid-season, so for the final race he went to Sauber and stayed with them for 2003, where he fought closely with teammate Nick Heidfeld and finished off his career with another podium. In 60 races he got no wins, 3 podiums, no poles, no fastest laps, 32 points and a best finish of third at the 2000 Brazilian and United States Grand Prix and 2003 United States Grand Prix. We're now in the top 20 with the real big names. First up is Takuma Sato. Honda's golden boy made his debut with Honda customer team Jordan in 2002. It wasn't the easiest year, in which he made a lot of rookie errors and crashed numerous times, but scored his first points at his home Grand Prix. He moved on to Honda's main team BAR for 2003 as a test driver and was called up for the final race after Jacques Villeneuve was sacked and scored more points. He was made a full-time driver for 2004 when the car became far more competitive. He scored regular points and a podium in Indianapolis, though far fewer of both than teammate Jenson Button, and also started on the front row at the Nürburgring and set an overall lap record that wasn't broken until 2020. The 2005 car was far worse, and Sato scored points only once, at which point he was sacked. However, due to his enduring popularity, an unofficial Honda B team called Super Aguri was founded in order to keep him on the grid. Despite the car being awful, Sato shone here. His teammates gave him little to no competition and he could occasionally keep up with Midland, but at the season-ending Brazilian Grand Prix everything came together and he beat his teammate, both Midlands, both Toro Rossos and a Red Bull to finish a stunning 10th. For 2007, Super Aguri had a better car, and Sato struggled to adjust as well as new teammate and Honda compatriot Anthony Davidson. But unlike him, he had the pace to give the team points, including with a stunning pass on defending champion Fernando Alonso in Canada. The team folded after 4 races in 2008, and after an unsuccessful attempt to sign with Toro Rosso in 2009, he moved to America and won the Indy 500 twice. In 90 races, he got no wins, 1 podium, no poles, no fastest laps, 44 points, and a best finish of 3rd at the 2004 United States Grand Prix. In 19th is Heikki Kovalainen. After 3 years of testing with Renault, Kovalainen was finally given a race seat in 2007, replacing the outgoing double defending champion Fernando Alonso. The first few races were a little shaky, but once he got into a rhythm, he started regularly outscoring teammate Giancarlo Fisichella and got a supreme 2nd place at the very wet Fuji Speedway. He developed a penchant for staying out of trouble and was approaching Thiago Montero's record of most consecutive finishes for a rookie, and ended up tying with him after a suspension failure at the final round in Brazil, but still beat his far more experienced teammate in the standings. For 2008, he replaced Alonso again, but this time at McLaren, and was dealt a bit of a bad hand by being partnered up with vice-champion Lewis Hamilton. He was clearly nowhere near Lewis's pace and wasn't a particularly effective wingman in their battle with Ferrari, but could pick up the pieces when Lewis made errors, including taking his sole win at Hungary after an engine failure for Felipe Massa. He stayed for 2009, but both the car's performance and his deteriorated, and he never finished on the podium. He was let go in 2010, but spent 3 years as the undisputed best of the rest at Lotus and Caterham. In 52 races, he got 1 win, 4 podiums, 1 pole, 2 fastest laps, and 105 points. In 18th is Nico Rosberg. The 2005 GP2 Series champion signed with Williams for 2006, the same team his father Keke had won the championship with 24 years earlier. He impressed by taking 7th and the fastest lap at the season opener, but beyond this barely had a chance to get going. The car was fast but had appalling reliability, and this combined with several first lap crashes meant he scored points only one other time. The 2007 car was far more reliable, though maybe a bit less competitive, but still meant that he quintupled his point score and beat teammate Alexander Wurz. He started 2008 strongly with his first podium, but beyond this points were rare as the team dropped to the lower end of the midfield, but he did almost win in Singapore. For 2009, Williams were one of the teams running a controversial double diffuser, and this allowed him to score points at almost every race he finished and double his point score from 2008, even without any podiums, whereas teammate Kazuki Nakajima failed to score any. For 2010 he moved to Mercedes, and 6 years later was champion. In 70 races he got no wins, 2 podiums, no poles, 2 fastest laps, and a best finish of 2nd at the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix. In 17th is Jarno Trulli. After impressive performances with Minardi and Prost, Trulli moved to Jordan for 2000. Jordan had expected to continue being title contenders, but this proved not to be the case. This era saw the onset of the Trulli train, in which he would put in stellar qualifying performances but not have the race pace to back it up, though he did almost always finish top 10 when the car let him. He moved to Renault in 2002, where he typically outqualified teammate Jenson Button but fall behind in races. He was joined by Fernando Alonso in 2003. The car was a marked improvement, and Trulli was largely blown out of the water by the young Spaniard who won a race, but Trulli got a podium of his own. He stepped up for 2004 and became a regular point scorer, and put his qualifying prowess to good use at the one circuit that needs it more than any other, and took pole in the win at Monaco. From Silverstone onwards he failed to score any points, and got pole at Spa but dropped down to 9th in the race. He was sacked with 3 races remaining and moved over to Toyota. Despite the downgrade, he drove very strongly, getting podiums early on and pole at Indianapolis, only to have to pull out like every other Michelin team. 2006 was not so good, and he got his worst point score since 2002. 2007 was even worse, and he got his worst point score since 2000. 2008 by comparison was considerably better, with semi-regular points finishes and a podium in France. Major rule changes for 2009 initially gave Toyota a big pace advantage, as they were one of the 3 teams running a double diffuser, and he stormed from the pit lane to 3rd in Australia. He got pole in Bahrain but dropped to 3rd in the race. The car couldn't sustain this performance going forwards, and points became rarer, but he got on the podium again in Japan. After Toyota collapsed, he finished off his very long career at Lotus. In 172 races he got 1 win, 9 podiums, 4 poles, 1 fastest lap and 235.5 points. In 16th is Nick Heidfeld. Quick Nick entered Formula 1 at the turn of the century with Prost. This was a fairly weak debut season compounded by numerous retirements and more than one collision with teammate Jean Alesi. He moved to Sauber in 2001 and only 3 races in got his first podium. He stayed for 2002 after his rookie teammate Kimi Raikkonen got the seat he was expected to take at McLaren. His new teammate Felipe Massa wasn't much of a match for him, but Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 2003 provided far greater challenge. He moved to Jordan for 2004, which was largely a throwaway season in an uncompetitive car. In 2005 he moved to the far more competent Williams, where he beat teammate Mark Webber, got a few podiums and his first pole position at the Nürburgring, but finished second in the race. He missed the last 4 rounds due to a test crash and then a cycling accident. He returned to Sauber under their new BMW guys in 2006, where he scored fewer points than in 2005 but did so more consistently and also easily dispatched of teammates Jacques Villeneuve and Robert Kubica. 2007 was the strongest race of his career. He scored points at every race he finished and was best of the rest with 5th in the standings. His pace was a little more inconsistent in 2008, where he was largely outclassed by the race-winning Kubica and finished second 4 times. BMW Sauber's 2009 car was a major dud by comparison, and he didn't get many other points beyond a lucky second place at Sepang. He ended his career with the record for most podiums and most points without a win. In 167 races he got no wins, 12 podiums, 1 pole, 2 fastest laps, 219 points and a best finish of second at the, wait for it, 2005 Monaco and European Grand Prix, 2007 Canadian Grand Prix, 2008 Australian, Canadian, British and Belgian Grand Prix and 2009 Malaysian Grand Prix. In 15th is Giancarlo Fisichella. Fisichella already had a fair amount of experience going into the 2000s and was in his 3rd year with Benetton. He'd scored several podiums with them already and did so again in 2000, but scored no points in the second half of the season, still comfortably beating teammate Alex Wurz. Their 2001 car was a lot worse, leaving them as backmarkers, but he still scored points at key moments and got another podium and once again comfortably beat teammate Jenson Button, but was dropped for 2002 and went back to Jordan, who he had previously driven for in 1997. It was much of the same as with Benetton, scoring points at key moments and getting little competition from teammate Takuma Sato. For 2003 the car was even slower, but at Interlagos he got the first win of his career on his 111th start in bizarre circumstances. In heavy rain he took the lead just before the race was red flagged, but as the classification was taken for the penultimate lap the win went to Kimi Raikkonen. However, a week later a timing error was discovered that gave the win back to Fisichella. He moved to Sauber in 2004 and drove his most competitive and dependable car in years, scoring numerous points and once again beating teammate Felipe Massa. In 2005 he finally got his big break by moving to Renault, who had the fastest car on the grid, which enabled him to take pole and the win at the opening round. Beyond this, however, it was teammate Fernando Alonso and the McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen battling for the wins in the championship, and he saw the podium only twice more. 2006 was better as he got another win and scored points every time he finished, but didn't provide much of a supporting role to Alonso in his battle against Schumacher. For 2007, Renault no longer had a race-winning car and he ended up being outperformed by rookie teammate Heikki Kovalainen. He took a serious downgrade by moving to Force India in 2008, where he was faster than teammate Adrian Sutil but scored no points all year. 2009 started the same, only without him able to produce Sutil's breakthrough performances that were usually ruined of accidents. However, out of nowhere he took pole position at Spa and finished second in the race. After this he was rewarded with a move to Ferrari to replace Luca Badoer, but there was a huge void between him and teammate Kimi Raikkonen and he scored no points and his long career fizzled out. In 173 races he got 3 wins, 14 podiums, 3 poles, 1 fastest lap and 218 points. In 14th is Mark Webber. Webber made a big impression on his debut in 2002. He was meant to replace Fernando Alonso at Minardi for 3 races, but after finishing 5th in front of his home crowd he stayed for the entire season. He quickly moved on to Jaguar in 2003, where for 2 years he made the best of an unreliable car and almost always finished top 10 and comfortably beat teammates Antonio Pizzonia, Justin Wilson and Christian Klein. For 2005 he moved to the far more competitive Williams, however he now found himself being outperformed by the more experienced Nick Heidfeld. He often qualified well, but the car did not work so well in race trim, but still had a strong first half of the season where he got his first podium in Monaco, but beyond this he got involved in a lot of accidents. He stayed for 2006 but was now joined by rookie Nico Rosberg. Here the car was fast but had by far the worst reliability of any car that year, and twice the car broke down while on course for a podium. He moved back to Milton Keynes for 2007, now in its Red Bull guise alongside David Coulthard, giving a team intended for bringing young drivers through the ranks a driver lineup with a combined age of 65. Once again, he had an unreliable car, making points difficult, though he got a podium at the Nürburgring and almost did again in Japan until being rear-ended by future teammate Sebastian Vettel behind the safety car, having already vomited inside his own helmet. 2008 started far better as he got a string of 5 consecutive points finishes at the start of the season. The car's performance faded in the second half of the season, but he comfortably beat the outgoing Coulthard. For 2009, he was joined by Vettel, and the team had benefited from the new regulations and produced an aerodynamically sound race-winning car. Initially, it was hard to topple Brawn GP, but at Germany, Webber got his first pole position and first win, despite having to serve a drive-through penalty. Beyond this, his campaign faltered with a series of non-points finishes, leaving just Vettel to try and take the crown from Jenson Button. He ended the season with a first and a second, but was still far behind Vettel despite his numerous mistakes that cost him the championship. After throwing away the title at Korea in 2010, Webber was then dragged kicking and screaming into the role of number 2 driver while his teammate monopolised the championship. In 138 races, he got 2 wins, 10 podiums, 1 pole, 3 fastest laps and 169.5 points. In 13th is Robert Kubica. As BMW Sauber's test driver, Kubica was expected to be given a race seat in 2007, but was instead called up mid-2006 to replace Jacques Villeneuve. He scored points on his debut but was later disqualified. 2 races later at Monza, he got his first podium and led part of the race. His 2007 campaign started better but was interrupted by a huge crash at Canada in which his feet were left hanging out of the front of what was left of the car. He sat out one race which gave Sebastian Vettel his debut. After he came back, he was a consistent point scorer but got no podiums and was far behind teammate Nick Heidfeld. He was quick out of the blocks in 2008 and got his first pole position in Bahrain, and went one better in Canada to make up for the previous year and take his first win and the lead in the championship. However, there were no further race wins and he wasn't quite able to hold on to Lewis Hamilton and Felipe Massa in the title fight. BMW Sauber had a much weaker car in 2009, but despite this he still came close to winning the first race until he collided with Vettel in the dying stages. Beyond this, there were only a couple of points until the team introduced a double diffuser, at which point he started getting regular points and a second place at Brazil. Seen as a future champion, Kubica enjoyed a very strong 2010 with Renault and was set to go to Ferrari in 2012, until of course his rallying accident cost him potentially the best years of his career. In 57 races he got 1 win, 9 podiums, 1 pole, no fastest laps and 137 points. In 12th is Ralf Schumacher. Always destined to live in his older brother's shadow, Ralf debuted with Jordan in 1997. After being denied his maiden win at Spa in 1998 due to team orders, Michael bought him out of his contract and he moved to Williams. His second season with them began in 2000. He got 3 podiums and was a regular point scorer, far outscoring rookie teammate Jenson Button, but also had a few big crashes. For 2001 he was joined by Juan Pablo Montoya. They had a car that could have been fast enough to challenge for the title if not for its unreliable BMW engine. Despite this, Ralf got 3 wins, including a 1-2 with Michael at Canada and his first pole position. The reliability problems were resolved in 2002, but the catch was the car being less competitive, and despite finishing all but 3 races, Ralf got only 1 win and fewer points than 2001 and finished behind Montoya. He had his strongest start to a season in 2003 with 10 consecutive points finishes, culminating in 3 pole positions and a second and 2 wins from Monaco to France. A testing accident meant he missed the Italian Grand Prix and he finished far behind Montoya in the standings, who had been a title contender. In 2004, Williams' car with its radical walrus nose concept was noticeably weaker. He got disqualified from second at Canada after starting from pole, and then went backwards into the wall at Indianapolis' banking, broke his back and missed the next 6 races. He moved to Toyota for 2005 alongside Jarno Trulli. Despite the weaker car, he performed better than a lot of times with Williams, but crashed again at Indianapolis in a very similar fashion to the previous year, this time due to a tyre failure which triggered the withdrawal of all the Michelin teams. His second half of the season was even stronger with 2 podiums, a pole and a fastest lap. 2006 was weaker with a slower car and more retirements, but he still got a podium and continued to outscore Trulli. Both the car and his performances were much worse in 2007. He was outscored by Trulli, and then his career fizzled out after he was let go and couldn't find another seat, failing to emulate his older brother in even winning a single championship. In 131 races, he got 6 wins, 20 podiums, 4 poles, 7 fastest laps and 267 points. In 11th is David Coulthard. In the 90s, Coulthard had enjoyed a long partnership at McLaren with Mika Hakkinen, helping support his teammate in his double title victory, and had finished 3rd in the standings 3 times. Going into 2000, he wanted to step up and claim the championship for himself. This ultimately did not happen, as Ferrari had stepped up themselves and Michael Schumacher claimed their first driver's title in 21 years. Coulthard had been regularly on the podium and got 3 wins, but had a few race-ending crashes and a disqualification which meant he finished 3rd once again. Momentum swung in Coulthard's favour in 2001 as Hakkinen faded and then went on a sabbatical. Coulthard finished on the podium in almost every race, but there was no stopping Schumacher, and he got only 2 wins and was runner-up in the championship, with just over half the points haul of Schumacher. Hakkinen was replaced with the young Kimi Raikkonen for 2002, and Coulthard found himself fighting more with Williams than Ferrari, got only 1 win and dropped to 5th in the standings. He started 2003 strongly with a win in Australia, but Raikkonen had got into a stride now and was pushing Schumacher all the way for the title, whereas Coulthard only saw the podium twice more that year. 2004 was his final year of McLaren, in which he had dropped into the midfield and scored no podiums, and was behind Raikkonen, who overcame reliability problems and general inconsistency by finishing higher when he could. He moved to the brand new Red Bull in 2005, and initially had a very strong start with regular points, and far more than inexperienced teammates Christian Klien and Antonio Liuzzi, but lost a bit of his pace in the second half. He stayed for 2006, and while the car was less competitive, he did get the team's first podium in Monaco. He was joined by Mark Webber for 2007, who gave him a bit more competition, but he still outscored him. His final season was not so good, and outside of a podium in Canada, he scored points only once and ended his very long career in the barriers, courtesy of Kazuki Nakajima. In 156 races, he got 7 wins, 32 podiums, 4 poles, 7 fastest laps and 314 points. We've now reached the top 10, the very best of the 2000s. First up is Juan Pablo Montoya. In many ways the Max Verstappen of his generation, Montoya made a big impression as a rookie for Williams in 2001 with his aggressive, seemingly fearless racecraft, holding off against defending champion Michael Schumacher at Interlagos on a more conservative strategy, until being taken out while lapping Jos Verstappen. After this, a series of further crashes and poor reliability meant he scored far fewer points than the car was capable of, but he got 3 pole positions and his maiden win at Monza. Improved reliability in 2002 meant he finished much more consistently. He proved himself a capable qualifier as well, as he got a run of 5 consecutive pole positions mid-season, but retired from 3 of the races. He became a title contender in 2003 after Ferrari lost some of their advantage. After winning the Monaco Grand Prix, he was 2/3 of the way to the Triple Crown of Motorsport, and started a run of 8 consecutive podium finishes, but a last-minute rule change regarding tyres, a drive-through penalty for a collision with Rubens Barrichello at Indianapolis, and a retirement from the lead at Suzuka left him 3rd in the standings. His final year with Williams wasn't so good, and their walrus nose design was not capable of winning races. He still scored regularly, even with a double disqualification mid-season, and overhauls to the car meant he won the final race. He moved to McLaren in 2005. He struggled to adjust to the car and often span, and then missed 2 races after breaking his ankle playing tennis. He was disqualified again in Canada. In the second half of the year, he got the car to work better for him and won 2 races, including setting the highest top speed ever achieved in a Grand Prix at Monza, but also had a succession of retirements which prevented him closing the gap to teammate Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso. He entered 2006 knowing it was his final year at McLaren. There was some kind of major error or mechanical issue at almost every race, and after causing 2 big crashes at Montreal and Indianapolis, he announced he was moving to NASCAR in 2007 and was then sacked. In 94 races, he got 7 wins, 30 podiums, 13 poles, 12 fastest laps and 307 points. In 9th is Rubens Barrichello. The Valtteri Bottas of the V10 era, Barrichello got his big break with Ferrari in 2000 after 7 largely frustrating years in the sport. He knew full well he would be expected to play a supporting role to Michael Schumacher, who was starting his 5th attempt to win the title with Ferrari. He fulfilled this role very well, consistently finishing on the podium, and took an emotional first win at Hockenheim after starting 18th. He was 4th in the standings but helped the team win both titles. He didn't win any races in 2001 but was on the podium at almost every race and finished 3rd in the standings. 2002 got off to a rocky start as he had 3 successive retirements at the start of the season. He was set to win in Austria but famously gave the lead up to Schumacher at the last minute. Schumacher gave him the winner's trophy and the following year team orders were banned. After this he got 4 wins and a bit of recompense as Schumacher accidentally gave him the win at Indianapolis after attempting a photo finish, and he was runner-up in the championship to his unstoppable teammate. He got 2 wins in 2003 and a few retirements damaged his own campaign but helped the team to just clinch both titles once again. 2004 was much of the same. He was on the podium at almost every race and got 2 wins of his own after Schumacher claimed his 7th championship and was runner-up to him once again. Tyre changes in 2005 put an end to Ferrari's dominance, and Barrichello got only 2 podiums, one of which was in a 6-car race, and finished way down in 8th in the standings. He moved to Honda for 2006 and scored regular points but got no podiums and was largely outpaced by race-winning teammate Jenson Button. 2007 was an abysmal year in which he scored no points, and 2008 was only marginally better with him occasionally stepping up when other drivers faltered, such as getting 3rd at Silverstone. Honda's withdrawal at the end of the year put his future in doubt, but after Ross Brawn saved the team, he found himself in a similar position to his Ferrari years, playing second fiddle to teammate Jenson Button. Button dominated the first half of the year, but Barrichello got 2 wins of his own in the second half, but general lack of pace over Button and title robber Sebastian Vettel meant he ended the decade 3rd in the championship. In 172 races he got 11 wins, 62 podiums, 8 poles, 16 fastest laps and 530 points. In 8th is the first champion from the 2000s on this list, Jenson Button. Button's long career began after winning a shootout for a seat at Williams in 2000, not finding out he had the seat until the car's launch. It was mostly a strong debut season with a handful of points finishes and a second row start at Spa, but he did crash behind the safety car at Monza. He was replaced with the highly rated Juan Pablo Montoya in 2001 and went to Benetton on a 2-year loan. The car was largely undrivable for him without power steering and he scored points only once. Benetton became Renault in 2002 and the addition of power steering and launch control greatly improved his form, enabling him to largely outpace his much more experienced teammate Jarno Trulli. He had never gotten on with Flavio Briatore and was replaced with Fernando Alonso for 2003 and moved over to BAR. The season started shakily and teammate Jacques Villeneuve did not like him. His reputation improved later in the season as he started beating him and had been trying to mature and shrug off his playboy image. 2004 was his breakthrough year. He got his first pole position at Imola and finished on the podium no less than 10 times, but never saw the top step due to that pesky German. BAR's car in 2005 wasn't anywhere near as competitive, and by the halfway mark he had no points after the team were disqualified at Imola and banned from 2 races, and crashing out in Canada after getting pole. From France onwards, however, he scored points at every race and got 2 podiums, far outpacing teammate Takuma Sato as he had done in 2004. BAR became Honda in 2006, and the car showed potential early on with Button getting pole in Australia, but he lost the engine just before crossing the finish line. After a few retirements, he took his first win at a very wet Hungary, and from here onwards scored more points than any other driver. In 2007 the team completely dropped the ball, and he suffered 2 years in terrible cars barely scraping any points out. At the end of 2008, Honda abruptly pulled out of the sport, shocking Button knowing they'd invested a lot in their 2009 car. However, Ross Brawn bought the team and rebadged it as Brawn GP, heralding Button's fairy tale year where after thinking his F1 career was over, he won 6 of the first 7 races and despite not winning a race beyond Turkey, still beat Sebastian Vettel to the title at the penultimate round, entering the 2010s as defending champion. In 170 races he got 7 wins, 24 podiums, 6 poles, 2 fastest laps and 327 points. In 7th is Sebastian Vettel. Vettel was mostly known for his youth in his early career. As BMW Sauber's test driver in 2006, he became the youngest driver to participate in a Grand Prix weekend at the Turkish Grand Prix at the age of 19. He remained as test driver in 2007 while racing in the Formula 3 Euro Series. After Kubica's crash in Montreal, he was called up to race at Indianapolis, and despite running across the grass at turn 1 at the start, he finished 8th to score points on his debut. A few races later, a vacancy appeared at Toro Rosso, and as a Red Bull Junior driver it was given to Vettel. His performances were initially fairly typical of what you would expect from Toro Rosso, but at the very wet Japanese Grand Prix he'd worked his way up to third, on course to score Toro Rosso's first podium and their first points of the year, until he crashed into Red Bull senior Mark Webber behind the safety car. He made up for this blunder, however, with another strong wet weather performance by going from 18th to 4th in Shanghai. He stayed with Toro Rosso in 2008. It initially did not get off to a good start as he retired from the first 4 races, 3 of which were first lap accidents, but the introduction of a new car at Monaco heralded one of the greatest non-championship campaigns in Formula 1 history. From here onwards he started regularly appearing in the points, usually beating senior team Red Bull in the process, and got his first Q3 appearance in qualifying at Valencia. In a wet qualifying at Monza, he took his first pole position and then a comfortable lights to flag victory in the race, setting new youth records in the process. From here, he continued regularly making it into Q3 and finishing in the points, and almost took the title away from Lewis Hamilton by passing him in the dying stages of the Brazilian Grand Prix. He finished 8th in the standings with 35 points, by far the best performance by a Toro Rosso driver, while teammate Sebastian Bourdais was 17th with 4 points. For his efforts, he was rewarded with a promotion to Red Bull for 2009. The new regulations benefited them, and Adrian Newey produced a race-winning car. However, as with 2008, things did not start well. Vettel was running second for most of the Australian Grand Prix until crashing into Robert Kubica right at the end. At Malaysia, he then spun and stalled the car in the torrential rain just before the race was red flagged. He made up for this wet weather blunder with a lights to flag victory in the rain at Shanghai. Beyond this, it was initially hard to topple Jenson Button and Brawn GP, which was not helped by a crash in Monaco. He won in Silverstone but also got 2 mechanical retirements in Valencia and Hungary. He got another win in Japan but lost the title to Button in Interlagos, despite Button not winning any races beyond the 7th round, having cost himself way too many points early on. He had a small consolation in winning the final race in Abu Dhabi and being vice-champion, however, the best was yet to come. In 43 races, he got 5 wins, 9 podiums, 5 poles, 3 fastest laps and 125 points. In 6th is Mika Hakkinen. The Flying Finn entered the 2000s as the man to beat, having just won the title twice with McLaren and defeating Ferrari both times in the process. His title defence, however, did not get off to the best starts with 2 retirements from pole. A succession of retirements for Michael Schumacher mid-season enabled him to close up to him and take the lead of the championship with double wins in Hungary and Spa, including a stunning double overtake on Schumacher and Ricardo Zonta in the dying stages of the latter. However, Schumacher won the remaining 4 rounds from pole, and an engine failure in Indianapolis prevented him from taking a 3rd consecutive driver's title. In 2001, the car didn't really give him a proper chance to fight back. He crashed heavily after a suspension failure in Australia. He stalled at the start of the Brazilian Grand Prix and retired from the lead on the last lap in Spain. The car stalled again at Austria and the steering broke in Monaco, and there was another non-start in France. He finally won in Silverstone and got his final win at Indianapolis before finishing 4th in the standings and deciding to go on a sabbatical. He's 53 now, but hasn't officially retired, so you never know. In 34 races, he got 6 wins, 14 podiums, 5 poles, 12 fastest laps and 126 points. In 5th is Felipe Massa. Massa's debut year in 2002 with Sauber was fairly underwhelming. He always finished top 10 but span and crashed in a lot of other races. He was left without a drive for 2003 but became Ferrari's test driver. He returned to Sauber in 2004 and did seem to improve with more points and fewer crashes. There were fewer points in 2005, but he still beat his former champion teammate Jacques Villeneuve. He was given a race seat at Ferrari in 2006 alongside Michael Schumacher. He performed admirably in his supporting role and got several podiums, and his first 2 wins at Turkey and Interlagos, but despite finishing 3rd, the team still lost both titles to Renault. He was joined by Kimi Raikkonen in 2007. He started strongly with 3 poles and 2 wins from the first 4 races. A disqualification at Canada and a poor showing at Hungary meant he started to drop away in the title fight. He won in Turkey, but a retirement at Monza effectively ended his title campaign, and he gave up the lead at Interlagos in order to hand the title to Raikkonen. 2008 started terribly, with him spinning at the start of Australia and then blowing the engine and then crashing out in Sepang. After this, he got back into a rhythm with regular poles, wins and podiums until a disastrous Silverstone where he spun incessantly in the rain while rival Lewis Hamilton took one of the greatest wins of his career. He was leading in Hungary before the engine blew, but hit back with a win in Valencia and an undeserved win in Spa after Hamilton was penalised for something that wasn't considered illegal when the race happened. He had been leading in Singapore until the chaos caused by an ultimately choreographed safety car meant he exited his pit box with the fuel hose still attached. Massa spanned Hamilton on lap 2 of the Japanese Grand Prix, which left Hamilton out of the point and Massa 6th, even with a penalty, and then also doing the same to Sebastian Bourdais, who got penalised instead. He critically got pole at the final round in Interlagos while Hamilton faltered and comfortably led the race to take the win. For about 40 seconds he was champion-elect in front of his home crowd until Hamilton passed Timo Glock at the final corner to take the championship from him by 1 point. Ferrari dropped the ball with the 2009 regulations, which prevented him going for the title again. After starting to gradually improve and getting a podium in Germany, he was almost killed after being struck on the head by a small spring during qualifying at Hungary and sat out the rest of the season. He returned to racing in 2010 but was never the same. In 114 races he got 11 wins, 28 podiums, 15 poles, 12 fastest laps and 320 points. In fourth is Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton turned a lot of heads upon his debut with McLaren in 2007 for many reasons. He was Formula 1's first black driver and only the second black person after Willie T. Ribbs to have even driven a Formula 1 car. He was a young British talent that had renewed a lot of interest in the sport from the British media and the British public after several years of underwhelming performances from David Coulthard and Jenson Button. And rather uniquely for a rookie, he was signing for a front-running team and would be partnering defending champion Fernando Alonso. As a rookie against the man who had defeated Schumacher, he was expected to be supportive and meek and mild on track, but this quickly proved not to be the case. He very boldly passed Alonso aggressively at Turn 1 in Australia and finished third, and quickly showed himself to be both dependable and consistent, finishing second 4 times in a row. At Canada he got his first pole position and drove a controlled race interrupted by several safety cars to take his first win. He repeated this at Indianapolis, once again fearlessly battling with Alonso, and was beginning to be seen as a major title contender. There was enormous hype around him at Silverstone reminiscent of Mansellmania in the 80s and 90s, and he got pole position but dropped to third in the race. He made his first major blunder at the Nürburgring. He spun off at Turn 1 on lap 3 along with several other drivers in a sudden downpour, but was able to keep the engine running and controversially got the marshal's crane to lift him back onto the circuit, where he carried on a lap down and finished outside the points in 9th, ending his podium streak. After this, the relationship between him and Alonso started to fracture, and the team were coming under scrutiny as the findings of the Spygate scandal came to light. Despite Alonso blocking him in the pit lane in qualifying in Hungary in an effort to prevent him beating him to pole, he went on to win the race after Alonso was penalised for this. A puncture took him off the podium at Istanbul, and he was starting to see a resurgence for Kimi Raikkonen at Ferrari. At Fuji he got pole and took the first of his many wet weather victories, while Raikkonen had to climb up from the back and Alonso crashed out. At Shanghai came his second major blunder, as he started from pole but went too long on his slick tyres when the rain came down and beached the car at the pit entrance and gave the win to Raikkonen. Going into Interlagos, however, he was still favourite to become the first rookie champion in Formula 1 history, not counting Giuseppe Farina. He started second and was passed by Raikkonen at the start, but was still on course to take the title, until he lost transmission for 40 seconds and climbed his way back up to 7th, tying on points with Alonso who finished third, but losing the title to race winner Raikkonen by 1 point. Alonso left what had been a very toxic environment at McLaren to go back to Renault, and Hamilton was supported in his fight by Heikki Kovalainen. He won from pole in Australia, but struggled a bit after this with a poor showing in Sepang and then rear-ending Alonso in Bahrain and finishing outside the points. He won in the rain at Monaco despite hitting the barriers early on and getting a puncture, and was set to win in Montreal until he rear-ended Raikkonen in the pit lane. In France he finished outside the points after cutting a corner early on and getting penalised, which swung things in Ferrari's favour. At Silverstone, however, he delivered arguably the greatest win of his career by storming through in the rain to win by over a minute, while Massa spanned constantly. He won again in Germany, and a poor race in Hungary was made up for with a retirement for Massa. Massa beat him in Valencia, and then in Spain he'd seemingly pulled off another wet weather masterclass after crawling around on the final 2 laps on slicks after Raikkonen crashed out. However, he was given a 25-second time penalty for cutting the bus stop chicane, passing Raikkonen, letting him through, and then passing him again immediately at La Source, something which during the race itself was not illegal, dropping him to third and giving the win to Massa. Italy was a throwaway race, and an underwhelming drive in Singapore still gave him an advantage after Massa's pit stop blunder. In Japan, he was spun round by Massa, who was given a pointless penalty and left him with no points. He got one hand on the title with a win in China, but then qualified badly in Interlagos and was struggling in the race while Massa was comfortably leading. Sebastian Vettel passed him in the rain in the dying laps, taking the title away from him, but he managed to pass Timo Glock on dry tyres at the very last corner on the very last lap to finish 5th and become Formula One's youngest champion at that time. The 2009 regulations created a big inversion in the grid order, and both Ferrari and McLaren found themselves near the back. After getting disqualified in Australia, he clawed his way into the points in the next 3 rounds, but after this came a string of Q1 eliminations and non-points finishes. After Germany, however, the car was completely redesigned, which gave him the win in Hungary and pole in Valencia. He crashed out at the start of Spa and the end of Monza, but won in Singapore. He was leading Abu Dhabi until retiring the car and climbed back up to 5th in the standings. His remaining years at McLaren became known as his zombie years due to a series of crash-tastic performances, but we all know he made up for that in the end. In 52 races, he got 11 wins, 25 podiums, 17 poles, 3 fastest laps and 257 points. In third is Kimi Räikkönen. There were concerns over the Iceman signing with Sauber in 2001, as he was only 21 years old and had only done 23 races in single-seaters. He quickly silenced these concerns by finishing 6th on his debut, having woken up only 30 minutes before the race started. That season he never finished outside the top 10 and was signed to McLaren for 2002. He was plagued with reliability problems and finished only 6 races, but never finished any lower than 4th and almost won at Magny-Cours, matching his much more experienced teammate David Coulthard. Reliability problems were mostly solved in 2003, and even with the team using the 2002 car, he proved a title contender. He took his first win at Sepang and initially had a second at Interlagos that was later taken away. He finished extremely consistently on the podium, but collided with other drivers at the start of Spain and Germany and retired from the lead at the Nürburgring. Tyre rule changes late season gave a big advantage to the Bridgestone-wearing Ferrari, and despite winning only one race, he lost the title to Schumacher by only 2 points. In 2004, McLaren fell back into bad reliability habits, and Räikkönen scored only 1 point in the first 7 races. A B-Spec car introduced mid-season was far better, and he got a win and 3 more podiums, but still finished 7th in the standings. For 2005, McLaren were competitive once again in light of Ferrari's decline. He had a shaky start to the year that gave the Renault of Fernando Alonso a big initial lead. He started to close up in the European leg with a series of poles, wins and podiums, but had major blows dealt to his title chances with a drive shaft failure while leading at Imola, a last lap tyre blowout while leading at the Nürburgring, and a hydraulic failure from the lead at the Hockenheim, all 3 times giving the win to Alonso. He hit back in the second half of the year with 3 wins, including a stunning last lap pass on Giancarlo Fisichella at Suzuka, and had often made up for poor qualifying by storming through the field, but lost the title to Alonso at 22 points. A resurgent Ferrari in 2006 meant he was unable to get any wins and was never a title contender, but never finished outside the top 5 and got 3 poles late in the season. He took a more carefree attitude to racing, and after retiring from Monaco felt an immediate urge to sunbathe on his yacht in the harbour, and in Brazil had a nice light car after having a shit before the race. For 2007 he replaced Schumacher at Ferrari and won from pole in his debut. A retirement at Spain and dodgy races afterwards gave the lead to Alonso and Hamilton, but he clawed back with 2 wins at Magny-Cours and Silverstone, and after another forgettable Nürburgring race where he missed the pit lane in the rain and then had a hydraulics failure, he finished on the podium at every remaining race and took advantage of McLaren's squabbles and a submissive teammate to win in Interlagos and also win the championship by 1 point. His title defence in 2008 started well with wins in Sepang and Barcelona, but he collided with Adrian Sutil in Monaco and was collided into by Hamilton at Montreal. After this he started falling behind teammate Felipe Massa and then ended his title defence with a run of 4 non-points finishes. Despite Massa losing the driver's title, Räikkönen had helped the team to claim the constructor's title. Ferrari produced a substandard car in 2009, which made it a huge challenge just to score points. Upgrades in the second half of the season gave him a win and 3 more podiums, but he was still 6th in the standings. After this he moved on to WRC, but came back in 2012 and in his second career indifferently drove his way to the most race starts of any driver in Formula 1 history. In 155 races he got 18 wins, 61 podiums, 15 poles, 34 fastest laps and 579 points. In second is Fernando Alonso. If you want to know just how good a car really is, you put Nando in it, as he will always drive to his heart's content. He debuted with Minardi in 2001, and while not scoring any points, he trounced teammate Tarso Marquez and developed a reputation for doing entire races on qualifying pace. He was made Renault's test driver in 2002 and was then given a race seat the following year. He became Formula One's youngest pole sitter at the second round in Sepang and then the youngest race winner at Hungary. He got no wins in 2004 due to the dominance of Schumacher, but got 4 podiums and regular points to finish 4th in the standings. Ferrari's dominance came to an end in 2005. It was time for Alonso and Raikkonen, both a similar age and both debuting in 2001, to come of age. Raikkonen had a faster car, but Alonso's was more reliable and he took 4 wins early in the season, including heroically holding off Schumacher for several laps at Imola. 3 times he inherited victories from Raikkonen's retirement, and at Interlagos he was crowned Formula One's youngest champion. He started his title defence in 2006, this time against a resurgent Schumacher, by finishing first or second in the first 9 races and getting a run of 5 consecutive pole positions. In the second half of the year, Schumacher started closing in after Alonso retired over loose wheel nut in Hungary and an engine failure at Monza. An engine failure for Schumacher at Suzuka gave Alonso one hand on the trophy, and he calmly drove to second at Interlagos while Schumacher recovered from a puncture to claim his second title. For 2007, he moved to McLaren and was joined by a young Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton proved to be a major thorn in Alonso's side by refusing to back down or be submissive, and took the lead over Alonso in the European leg. This started getting to Alonso, who deliberately blocked him in qualifying at Hungary while on provisional pole, and was then given a grid penalty which gave pole and the win to Lewis. He won from pole at Monza, but then effectively ended his title chances with a crash at Fuji. Errors from both drivers, plus their own mind games and internal squabbles, allowed Raikkonen to come from behind and snatch the title from both of them by 1 point. Alonso wanted nothing more to do with McLaren and moved back to Renault for 2008. Initially, the underpowered car was a midfielder, but aerodynamic upgrades in the second half meant he started scoring points regularly, and he won the inaugural Singapore Grand Prix, unknowingly being gifted the win after teammate Nelson Piquet Jr. had been asked to deliberately crash in order to bring out the safety car and clog up the pit lane. He won much more fairly at Fuji after the title contenders all had their own problems. He scored the most points of anyone in the final 5 races to finish 5th in the standings. He stayed with Renault for 2009, but the car was both hideous and slow, with inconsistent results ranging from pole position at Hungary to 14th at Silverstone. He moved to Ferrari in 2010, and 12 years later he's somehow still here, trying to bring El Plan to fruition. In 138 races he got 21 wins, 53 podiums, 17 poles, 13 fastest laps and 577 points. And finally, in first, who else? It's Michael Schumacher. A serious candidate for GOAT, Schumacher had made himself a legend in the 90s already, with 2 championships with Benetton, but had also twice been involved in title-deciding collisions. He joined Ferrari in 1996 with the aim of bringing them back to their former glory. 2000 was his 5th attempt at this. He started strongly by winning the first 3 races. Mechanical retirements mid-season allowed defending champion Mika Hakkinen to close up to him, but he came back with 4 consecutive wins to claim his 3rd driver's title and Ferrari's 1st in 21 years. In 2001, he ran almost unchallenged with 11 pole positions and 9 wins, breaking Alain Prost's record for most career wins at Spa in the process, and winning his 4th driver's title with almost double the points of runner-up David Coulthard. In 2002, he raised the bar even further and finished on the podium in every single race, something never previously achieved in the history of the sport, giving him his 5th driver's title with a record 6 races remaining, matching Juan Manuel Fangio's record. There were, however, controversies. Teammate Rubens Barrichello had been leading the entire Austrian Grand Prix but was ordered to hand the win over to Schumacher at the last minute. Schumacher gave Barrichello the winner's trophy and swapped steps on the podium, for which the team were fined, and the following year team orders were banned. Balance was restored, however, at the United States Grand Prix, where in an attempt to create a photo finish, Schumacher slowed down and accidentally gave the win to Barrichello, though some believe this was intentional. In 2003, Schumacher saw a renewed challenge from McLaren and Williams. Error-strewn races early on gave the title lead to Kimi Raikkonen. He started climbing back mid-season, only to then get a strong challenge from Juan Pablo Montoya. Tyre compound changes to the Michelin tyres 3 races before the end of the season allowed him to take 2 wins and clinch his record-breaking 6th driver's title by just 2 points. He was back on top again in 2004, winning 12 of the first 13 races after crashing into Montoya behind the safety car in Monaco. He finished 2nd at Spa but claimed his 7th driver's title and the 5th consecutive driver's title for himself and Ferrari, a record he still holds and probably will hold for a very long time. An uncharacteristically poor showing at Shanghai was his only non-points finish of the year. Major rule changes in 2005 brought an end to Schumacher and Ferrari's dominance. The car's Bridgestone tyres did not work so well, and he had no answer for Renault and McLaren early on, save for Imola, where he was right on Alonso's tail for several laps and lost the win by only 0.2 of a second. He took his only win of the year at the 6-car United States Grand Prix, needing only to beat his teammate, the 2 Jordans and the 2 Minardis. He got his only pole of the year at Hungary, but finished second in the race and had to settle for third in the standings. Ferrari refound their mojo in 2006. They matched the pace of Alonso and Renault early on, but lost points through strategy errors and an uncharacteristic crash from Schumacher in Australia. He hit back with wins at Imola and the Nürburgring. At Monaco, he deliberately parked his car at Rascasse in Q3 in an attempt to keep pole position, trying to feign it as an error. He was sent to the back of the grid and climbed up to 5th in the race while Alonso won it. The ball was in his court mid-season with 2 second places and 3 wins. At Hungary, Alonso retired with a loose wheel nut, but Schumacher was prevented from capitalising on this by a collision with Nick Heidfeld. A win at Monza and a retirement for Alonso brought him within 2 points of him, and after the race he announced he would be retiring at the end of the season. He took the lead in the championship with the last win of his career at Shanghai. At Suzuka, while leading, he suffered his first engine failure in over 6 years and gave Alonso the win. He conceded the title to Alonso, and at Interlagos he got a puncture from Giancarlo Fisichella and dropped to last, but heroically stormed through the field and finished 4th, but still lost the title to Alonso. Schumacher's unprecedented era of dominance was something that had never been seen before, but has since twice been emulated. He completely raised the game in terms of fitness and discipline, spending days testing at Fiorano outside of race weekends. At the time, the races were considered boring and monotonous, but with hindsight it's easier to look back upon this era and admire seeing such a great driver unfold before your eyes, driving some of the best looking and best sounding cars in the sport's history. In 122 races he got 56 wins, 83 podiums, 45 poles, 37 fastest laps and 789 points, and as such I can confidently declare him the greatest Formula 1 driver of the 2000s. Keep fighting, Michael. Well, we got there in the end. Thanks for sticking around. If you disagree with the order or think anyone else should be number 1, let me know in the comments. Don't forget also to like the video, share and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Brook_F1, and I'll see you all next time.